Hello everybody, welcome to our first video lecture that will be one of many, as this will be the new MO of how I'm going to get the information, the content of the textbook to you. So it's exciting, and I'm excited to see how this all turns out. So today we're going to talk about Mohammed, and Mohammed is who is going to be the prophet of Islam. So we're going to talk about his life. We're going to talk about Islam and Muslims. We're going to talk about him as the prophet. We'll talk about the Hijra, the center of Islam, conquest of Muhammad, and of course Muhammad's death, where we will end this video lesson for today. So let us begin. So one of the first things to take into mind, and I have this map up here because I want to illustrate to you a few things. So as you can see, and especially as you've done your map of the Arabian Peninsula, we have the Byzantine Empire, who's on the left side in green on this map, and we have the Sasanian or Persian Empire, the Sassanid, but they're called Sasanians, and they're on the right. And usually when two major empires border each other, they're not friends. In fact, they fight each other because the other is a threat to their power. So we have two huge empires of this time, especially in the Middle East, who are duking it out constantly at the borders where you see right here. And what does this mean? Well, this means that they're so busy fighting each other that they're not going to realize the movement that is going to occur down south of them. And that's going to be to eventually to their destruction, especially to the to Persia's, because their land is going to be completely taken over eventually by Islam, and the Byzantine Empire is going to be significantly reduced due to the expansion of Islam, which we'll cover in the next couple of videos. So these two are fighting, and something's going to happen here where they're just not paying attention, and it's going to get too big where they can't control it anymore. By the time they do try to want to control it, it's too late. Also, if you remember back from 6th grade, you talked about the Mesopotamians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians. You talked about the Persians, and we talked about so many other different empires who've occupied this area, but they've never bothered to occupy the Arabian Peninsula. The reason being is because nobody wanted to own that part. It was desert, it was arid, it didn't have a large river or a large body of water that you could depend on for sustenance. And so the only thing you could depend on within the Arabian Peninsula was oasis. And most of the caravans, when they traveled, they would travel through the Arabian Peninsula from oasis to oasis, because there's no way you would survive if you didn't. And so no major empire, including the Byzantines and of course the Persia right here, as you can see, they don't want it. To them, it's just a big desert. And yeah, there's a lot of cool trading goes on, and they can make some money trading with people there, but they didn't want to occupy the area. So that was another reason that allowed Muhammad and Islam to rise up to the strength that it eventually became, is because nobody took that area seriously. Alright, so let's talk about Muhammad. So Muhammad was the founder of Islam. He was born near Mecca around 570 CE. Both of his parents died when he was young. And this is going to be something that's really going to shape who Muhammad is later. He was raised by his uncle Abu Talib. He worked in a trading caravan. He became a very successful merchant, and at age 25 he married Khadijah, who was a very wealthy widow of age 40. And as you can see in this picture over here, there's a lot going on. It looks like this is probably the angel over here. And over this way, you see Muhammad, but you see this blue dot right there. That's not there by accident. It's not some kind of a mishap. That is there on purpose. in Islam, they're very serious about no images. And so to have Muhammad's face painted would be to have an image. And that's unacceptable. So all these pictures of Islam of Muhammad that you're going to see, they're going to be blotted out, and for good reason. And by the way, in the iconoclast debate that happened in the Byzantine Empire, what side do you think the Islam would be on? Would they be for destroying the icons or against it? Well, you probably guessed it right. They'd be for it because again, they don't believe in images. So to the point where not even Muhammad's face is allowed to be shown in writing. Okay, so we have we have Muhammad. Now he often spends a lot of time in a cave, the cave Hijra near Mecca. And around the age 40, Muhammad began having visions and visits from the angel Gabriel. So he started talking to people and telling them that he's getting these visions in this cave from the angel Gabriel. And he said one time, or a couple of times at least, that he's ridden heavenly horses named Barak. And this heavenly horse took him to see hell and see other places that Allah allowed him to see. Muhammad memorized the visions and taught them to his followers. And again, there you go again. Here's another blot out of his face. These visions were later written down in the Quran. According to tradition, he met Abraham, Moses, and Jesus and have spoken to them spoken directly to God. So he's establishing that he has a very close relationship with not only God, but also with ancient figures who have been highly reverenced throughout all of the Middle East, including the Arabian Peninsula. Now, the gods of Muhammad are called Allah. The God of Muhammad is called Allah, the Arabic word for God. Now, the religion is called Islam, meaning submission to God. Let me repeat that again. So, Islam means submission to God. Believers in Islam are called Muslims, meaning those who submit to Allah's will. So when you hear about someone who's a Muslim, it also means that you're a follower of Islam, but the literal translation is you are an individual who chooses to submit to Allah or God's will. And Islam is monotheistic, and monotheistic means it only believes that there's only one all-powerful God. It's not polytheistic. It doesn't believe in multiple gods. And polytheism is going all around the Arabian Peninsula at this time. So polytheism is probably more popular than monotheism at this time. So Muslims believe that Allah is the same God worshipped by Christians and Jews. So Allah and God, the same. Now, Muhammad believed himself to be a prophet of Allah. He believed that Christians and Jews had lost the right path, and he was chosen to show the correct way. So he feels a sense of obligation to bring people back to the truth that he had been enlightened with by Allah. And so Christians, Jews, he felt like they were on the right path a long time ago, but they had swayed, and it's his job and his followers' job to bring them back. Muhammad took his visions to the public. He condemned those who worship local gods. Remember, gods. Allah is the only God in Islam, and that's what Muhammad taught. So gods doesn't fly with him. It's not okay. There's only one true God in Islam. This set up the local leaders of the Quraysh tribe that controlled Mecca. So we have here that when Muhammad in Mecca is preaching that there's only one true God, it's going to piss a few people off. And there's a really powerful tribe called the Quraysh. And they were pagan. They believed in pagan gods. They believed in polytheism. So they believed there were multiple gods. And they had idols to each of those multiple gods in the Kaaba at that time. So eventually there was such a big problem between the Quraysh tribe and Muhammad and his followers that Muhammad was forced to leave Mecca. And so there's something called the Hijra. And the Hijra, it means it was the trip that Muhammad took. It's called the immigration. And Muhammad took a trip from Mecca because he was chased out for his life and his followers' life, and they moved to Medina. or Yathrib, and it was there that Islam continues to grow and to flourish, and of course the people of Medina accepted Muhammad. While many Arab groups in Medina joined Muhammad, Jews there rejected his authority. So in response, Muhammad decided that Mecca rather than Jerusalem would be the center of Islam. So there were some Jews that lived through the Arabian Peninsula. There's Jews that live all through the Middle East still at this time where Muhammad is alive, and there are Jews that lived in Medina, and they wouldn't accept Islam. They continued through Judaism, and because of their stubbornness and wanting to maintain their original faith, instead of making Jerusalem the capital of Islam, the center, instead the Mecca was. And unfortunately Mecca was occupied by the Quraysh, so Muhammad had to do something to make Mecca liberated and something that could become Islamic friendly. So Muhammad and his followers conquered all of the tribes around Mecca. So Muhammad is on a conquest, and he is on a quest and a conquest and a mission to bring everyone to Islam and to rid the people of worshiping pagan gods, for they're against Allah's will, is how he sees it. So Muhammad removed and destroyed all the idols in the Kaaba and dedicated it to Allah. So he goes to Mecca, and he finally takes out the Quraysh. And when he does, he gets into the Kaaba and he takes his staff and he breaks every single idol that was made in the Kaaba, and he affirms that Allah is the one true God. So Muhammad went to conquer the rest of the Arabian Peninsula, so they didn't just stop at Mecca, they continued on, and there are some very powerful sheiks that were in the area, and somehow Muhammad had enough followership and people dedicated to the Islamic cause that they would easily put their life down for it in defense and for battle. So they conquered the Arabian Peninsula, which was something that I don't believe ever happened in the history of the world, because it was a spot that nobody really cared about. It was hot, it was arid, and nobody really wanted to own it. So in the end, Muhammad, after they conquered the Arabian Peninsula, he dies, and he dies in Medina, and there he's even buried, and they even have the mosque there that has his remains. So that is the end of our first lesson. That gives you just a quick summary of who Muhammad is and his plight going forward. I think it's very interesting how even Muhammad, when he started preaching people about Islam and saying that he had a vision from Allah, that it wasn't just everyone agreed and followed him. A lot of people fought against him. They tried to kill him, but there were people who did believe him. And eventually, all of the Arabian Peninsula will believe him. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch up with the next session in about a week. Thanks a lot.